The next PNP is going to fix that problem on a scale never achieved before in Jamaica. The new titling system, which we are developing, will be complemented by a program which helps families lift themselves up by improving their homes, utilizing tradesmen and skilled artisans in their own communities to let the money stay local and benefit these communities. And we must talk a little about these communities, Mr. Speaker. Street lighting, garbage collection, and most importantly, water supplies are areas where these communities are treated shamefully by the state. Crime and violence are facilitated by the darkness of night, but the areas which are most prone to crime suffer from the greatest neglect when it comes to street lighting. That doesn't make sense from a national security standpoint, and is oppressive to the residents of these communities who go to work in the early morning when it's still dark and come home at night when it is dark in fear of darkness and fear for their lives. Many murders and other violent crimes could be prevented if there were working streetlights. Mr. Chairman, similarly, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, similarly, the garbage trucks serving these communities are not adequate to meet the needs of the dense populations which require those services. And we hear that there are some more garbage trucks coming, and we welcome that. Many of these communities have to put up with disruptions in water supply for months on end, sometimes bathing and catching water for cooking from fire hydrants. This is shameful, Mr. Speaker. We need a more inclusive Jamaica with a uniform standard of basic amenities for all our citizens. These conditions contribute to the lack of national productivity. They reinforce the reality that there are two Jamaicas, one which has to suffer through squalor and decay, while the other enjoys vastly superior living conditions. The gross underserving of these communities in the provision of critical amenities is unjust, it is unfair, and it must stop. They are people too, just like me and you. Mr. Speaker, I am confident in sharing these ideas long before any election manifesto, because I know that a JLP government has no interest in delivering on transformational social change. The result of their approach to development, as was the case in the 1960s and again in the 1980s, will be an even more unequal and lopsided society, where the great potential of the mass of our people is wasted and hope cannot thrive. We do not support that model of development. We do not believe in trickle-down economics. The current approach of providing incentives mainly to the owners of capital and wealth in the hope that benefits will trickle down to the have-nots is regressive and does not serve the interests of the vast majority of the Jamaican people. Indeed, that approach doesn't serve those at the top any more than those at the bottom. You cannot strengthen the strong by weakening the weak. We are all interdependent. We are all in this thing together. Mr. Speaker, social justice and equality are not just abstract concepts that are sung about in inspirational songs. They are essential principles in constructing a cohesive society that can flourish and meet the hopes and expectations of all its people, one that works for everyone, not just for a few. It is in the interest of every Jamaican, for this generation and for generations to come, that we build a Jamaica that works for all. I believe in these things from the core of my being and my identity. It is why I have moved out of the relative ease and comfort of private life as a successful corporate lawyer and investment banker to represent the people of the great constituency of South St. Andrews. So, Mr. Speaker, there is a fundamental difference between the policies and approaches of our party and the other party, our movement and the other party. The differences are in our history. The differences are in our traditions. The differences are in our orientation. The differences are in our objectives. We are the party which, under the Right Excellent Norman Washington Manley in the 1950s, opened up secondary education to thousands by introducing the common entrance exam. Before that, secondary education had been the domain of the privileged few. We are the party that made Jamaica the first country in the Western Hemisphere to introduce sanctions against the racist apartheid regime in South Africa. We did that. We are the party that achieved rates of economic growth among the top 3 countries in the world in that era. We are the party which, under Michael Manley, in the 1970s, eliminated the vile notion of bastardy. No bastard, no there again. We ensure that all Jamaican children have equal status and rights under the law. We strengthen the rights of workers by supporting collective bargaining and establishing the Industrial Disputes Tribunal. We gave women the right to equal pay for equal work. We gave women the right to paid maternity leave. Mr. Speaker, we are the party which, under P.J. Patterson in the 1990s and the early 2000s, built Highway 2000, built the North Coast Highway from the Grill in the west all the way to Port Antonio in the east. Infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. We expanded the airports. We expanded the seaports. We transformed telecommunications and internet services. We took Jamaica's infrastructure to a whole new level of development. We are the party which, under Portia Simpson Miller, from 2012 to 2016, rescued Jamaica from the brink of financial ruin. We restored the public finances to a sustainable path, successfully assuring the economic future of this country. And she did this with the anchor of Dr. Peter Phillips as Finance Minister. And Mr. Speaker, we did this without any social dislocation or unrest. Itself an amazing achievement. We conceptualized, we commenced, and we completed the North-South Highway. And we decriminalized the personal use of ganja so that thousands of youth no longer have a criminal record and cannot be thrown in jail for smoking a spliff. Mr. Speaker, we have a proud history of empowering the Jamaican people. We are ready and able to resume our historic mission by leading the country forward to greater progress, real equity, and yes, real prosperity for all. May God bless Jamaica, land we love. May it please you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, having heard that
Order, please. Order.
last presentation, which brought down the curtain on the House's activities today, I wish to invite you to suspend the sitting of the House during the sitting of the House until Thursday, day after tomorrow, when we will hear from the Leader of the Opposition in his version of what was enunciated here today, a further version of it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order, please. The motion is that the House be now adjourned until Thursday, March 14 at 2 o'clock. Those in favor? Those against? This House is now adjourned. Please stay in your seat. The House is now been adjourned.
Watch the annual budget